Hello, hello, and welcome. Welcome to everyone joining us for this fabulous Trek panel. I myself am Raven Dauda, and I'm here with some extraordinary guests today. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, and we're here to have some fun. So who are we with today?
Hi guys, Michelle Hurd here, Rafi from Star Trek Picard.
The one and only, and the fabulous, absolutely. I'm Cirroc Lofton. I'm also Jake Sisko from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and I'm glad to be here with you, Raven.
Yeah. Really glad to be sharing this with you guys. There's also another fabulous Trek actor who may be joining us. It's a surprise, so we'll see if he joins in, and we'll go from there. Mm-hmm. But this is a really special time, and I'm really honored to have. Oh,
look at that!
Here we go.
There he is.
I don't know if all of you all know this fabulous gentleman. His name is Conrad Coates. Conrad, you joined at the perfect time. We actually just started, literally signed on. We're doing the, you look fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please say who you are for all the fans out there.
I'm Conrad Coates. I'm here in Toronto. I play Captain Trell in Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah. Thank you. And I actually even forgot to mention, I play Dr. Tracy Pollard in Star Trek Discovery as well. So we are here. We have three Treks in one presence. It's amazing. And today I feel like we're going to be talking about diversity. Diversity in the Trek universe and what that is and who we are. We're going to just talk a little bit about what we've done, where we've come from, and I think we're gonna have a good time. So I have some questions for everyone, and once again, feel free to just join in and share what you feel. But one of them is just what was our first role? What was our first role as actors that we had? If we feel like sharing them, anything that comes to mind?
Lordy, I don't remember.
Right? Because we've all been doing this for a minute. We've all been doing this for a while. It's not like we just rolled up out of bed and then all of a sudden was on Star Trek. My very first one, I'll actually jump in and start off first. My first one was Murder at 1600. Ooh. And I was so just squeaky out of school. I auditioned for it. It was like a part of The Waitress. You know, the role doesn't even have a name, just The Waitress. And I was so excited auditioning for it. I had one line, and it was, "Get you something?" That was the line. And then I get the script, and this was back in the day when they send you a script, and I'm flipping through it with my mom and my brother. We're so excited. We get to the part of The Waitress, and it's been cut to coffee. One word coffee. Yeah. Don't you know? I practiced that one word. I don't know. I must have said it 200 different ways. Coffee. My brother to this day still, teases me about how I went over that, and it was amazing. I mean, I got to work with Diane Lane, and our guy there. Oh my goodness. Why am I drawing a blank? On Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes.
The Blade. Wesley Snipes. And that was awesome. That was
Nino Brown himself.
Yes. Nino Brown. Yes. Oh my gosh.
I can't really remember my first. I'm a native New Yorker, and I went to school, Boston University School for Theater Arts. And when I got back here, I just did a ton of theater. I did so much theater, like no paying theater gigs, that I felt like I had to join a no paying theater gigs anonymous or something. The phone would ring and I'd be like, yes, shit, So then I knew that I needed to figure out a way to make money. So I actually did a bunch of, I signed up with Sylvia Fay Extra Casting. I did tons of background work. So much so that a lot of the ADs knew who I was just on different shows, on different films. And there was one film I was doing background on, and an actress got sick or didn't show up or something, and they needed an actress to play a wife. And that was on King of New York. And they looked at me and they were like, "Michelle, come here." And I was Roger Smith's wife on King of New York. And the scene was with Roger, Christopher Walken, directed by Abel Ferrari. And I was literally like, I'm gonna be really good here. Don't mess up. Don't mess up. And so that kind of got me into like that kind of world. And then I started just doing, I'm trying to think of like a good part. I mean, I got a soap opera called Another World, and I played Dana Kramer, District Attorney Dana Kramer. And I remember my first day shooting that. I'm the DA, and there's a court case. And I remember my very first day, I'm doing an opening arguments, and they have all the grand dams, the stars of the show in the courtroom. And I mean, like, I'm right out of school. My knees were like shaking, you're trying to be really cool, and you're just like, my body's like trembling. But it was a fun experience. And I think from that moment, I was all into doing law, kind of, legal and cops and stuff like that.
Nice.
Cirroc or Conrad?
Yeah.
Conrad, after you, please.
Well, of course, I'm going to say my first role was on a show called The Campbells, which was a Little House on the Prairies.
Oh.
I was a runaway slave, of course.
Yes.
But what was so great about that gig was I got writing lessons. I got to write a horse for a week before we
Wow.
actually shot anything. So I think, and that's a skill I still actually have now. So I was really, really happy about booking that. Of course, it's your first gig regardless. And then, being on this animal that I've always wanted to write ever since I was a kid, I was just so happy just to be able to just get up on this animal for a couple hours every day before we shot and go for actual writing lessons. But of course, we had to play the runaway slave. Yeah.
Of course. I'm playing many of those roles. Right?
Right?
My first acting experience was in school, actually. I remember in 4th grade, we were doing a school play. And it was Martin Luther King. And there was only like 2 black kids in my school at that time. So I had a real easy job at getting the Martin Luther King role. But I was 9 years old, and that was my first like being on stage, doing a play and being the lead in a play.
Wow.
And even though it wasn't a real gig, it was just my first taste of acting. And getting the feedback from the audience and the teachers and principal, and I just really felt connected with that medium. So I said, oh, this is something I can do. But the first acting gig that I got was a commercial for the U.S. Army, and I was just playing a boy who was growing up and would eventually join the Army. So that was also fun for me to just kind of be on the set and just feel the energy of that. But I was also around a lot of adults, so it was also a little bit intimidating and a lot to soak up.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Conrad, you talk about playing a slave, and it's funny because the majority, or not funny, because the majority of roles, especially starting out, that I would go out for would be the stereotypical, like, either you're a slave or you're a hooker or you're a poor person, you're on drugs, you're like somehow disenfranchised person. And it was something back then that it was just the norm. Like that was just, those are the roles that I'd be going out for. And I mean, thank goodness there's been a progression and a change in that, but I kind of feel like it still happens to a degree where, the opportunities provided, yes, I'm saying that it is changing, but it's still that those stereotypes that they're there because it's so commonplace. So they kind of reinforce themselves. So then that's what we're called to go out for.
Yeah.
And then I ran into a problem of being, born in Ottawa Valley, Canadian girl. Didn't have those life experiences growing up, thank God. Yes, it was challenging, but not to the degree of like, your mother's a crack addict and it wasn't to the degree of that. And yet that is what I was called to recreate time and time again. And because I wouldn't talk a way that was recognizable as being, street or what have you, it was something to maneuver again through in developing my acting career. And I found that coming up to it time and time again was was frustrating, but it was something that's what all my other friends went through as well, like as actors and actresses, those types of roles. And so I just asked to you guys, to the panel, like how did you find that as well? Was that something that you were constantly called to play roles that were not necessarily something that you felt represented who you are as a person, like putting on, it's like putting on another cloak?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I talked about being on Another World, you know, a soap opera, and being a DA. And there was a white man, Stephen Schnitzer, who was the other, like the prosecutor, my counter person. And we worked a lot together, and we were having a really fun time. And he has more seniority and all that kind of stuff. And he talked to me and he was like, I think that, you know, we should see if they have Dana and, you know, my character get together. And he brought it to the producers, and literally the producers were like, no, there's no way that we're going to have this black white thing on this show, period, end of discussion. And so then I remembered, as we continued on in the year or a couple of years or whatever, they decided to bring on a partner for Dana. And so we had all this sort of casting call with all these black men, right? Then finally we have the black woman and the black man, and we're doing our thing. And then during the holiday season, if you think about soap operas, they would always do this sort of thing where you would have a moment where a soap opera actor would say, you know, hey, you know, Merry Christmas to you from our family to yours, station KTL or something like that. Yeah. Well, they asked everybody to do that, except for us. And I remember Eric Leroy Harvey, we were sitting at we were getting ready to shoot a scene, and we're sitting at a table and cameras here, and they said action, and he just turns to the camera and he goes, you know, from our family to yours, you know, Merry Christmas, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, did you not want us to do that? Oh, I see. I just thought maybe you forgot to ask us. You know, it was really like bristly, and, you know, nobody wanted to address it. It was really uncomfortable. And I remember also taking away from the soap the female leads, the ingenues, the love interests. And I remember watching, because I was a DA, and even though they had paired us, I was basically asexual, because they don't need to tap into that, right? They've already got their quota, they have their token, they don't need to get into past sexualities. You know, that's how they would handle it. And I remember seeing how these women were dealt with and objectified, you know. And so when I started, you know, not even having a say of parts that I got, I told my people, I was like, look, and I think I've said this before, if there's an option between a character that's wearing heels and a tight dress, or carrying a gun and carrying a badge, I'll take the gun and badge. I'm not interested in this. I don't want to be an object. I don't want to be someone's girlfriend or wife. Or I don't want to be sexualized anything. I want to have power. I want to have say. I want anybody who looks like me to see this woman is smart, strong, stands by herself, makes decisions by herself about the situation, doesn't need the help of a man. And I think I've tried really hard to sort of do that the whole time. But I will tell you that, the whole asexual thing, when you're a cop, a detective, a judge, any of those things as a woman of color, you're either divorced with children, your husband might have died, or you might be gay. Like they just don't want to tap into possibly, your actual sexuality, and you possibly having, because you know why? Because they don't want to deal with who your partner's going to be. They don't want to deal with that conversation. You know, it's changing. It's absolutely changing. But for sure, that was that back then. That's what I really was experiencing. Like, wow, this is I'm seeing this way. And by the way, when I went to college, Boston University, I played every single ethnic character. Like, I never played a white character. And I had to tell them at like my senior year, I said, I think there's a confusion here, because I have no problem being a minority. I got that down. Like, so I walk into a room, someone's like, that's a minority. You know, I don't have to work on it. But I came to college so that I would have the opportunity to play Juliet, not the nurse. Right. Because I put my money down just like she did.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that was a conscious choice for you that you felt all, like throughout your career.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, I mean, others can answer the question, absolutely. But just to speak to you, Michelle, how do you feel that has changed now from then to where you are now?
For me, or for women of color, or people of
For
color?
yourself personally, and or for women of color.
Yeah. I mean, I see that there's more opportunities there, and there are other characters now, and there are other choices to do something other than being like the law and the, you know, the boss in charge. But I mean, like I just did Bad Hair with Justin Simon, and you know, I loved it. But that's a Black show, you know, as a Black film. So I felt just taken care of. You know, I was really happy to be a part of it. I wanted to tell that story. It was, you know, it's about our obsession with hair, you know, and to what lengths that we will go to get our extensions, to get our, you know, our tracks in, to, you know, do all that stuff, the bleeding, the scalp, you know, we go through some crazy shit for what somebody says is pretty. Yeah. And that's why, you know, I constantly, and I mess with my hair and I do all this stuff because I want to say, this is how it comes out. It's a beautiful thing. We don't have to all look the same, you know? Yeah. I think it's changing, you know, but I don't know if you guys feel this. It feels very manipulated. Like if you watch commercials, everybody's like, you know, ethnic on a commercial now. Like there's everybody's multiracial, you know, like
unbelievable,
right? Unbelievable. Yeah. There's Black and the Asian and the Hispanic, and we're all one happy family. And I'm just like, okay,
all here now.
It's so manipulated now, and I part of me feels like that's a way that people are appeasing their own guilt or their own, you know, self-consciousness of what they've done in the past, as opposed to creating something organic. Like I would love to receive scripts that don't say any ethnicity.
I was just saying that to my partner.
Yeah, just say nothing, or say everyone. Because what I get these scripts that they have the Tom, Dick, Harry, Mary, Jane, Letitia. So, you know, and I'm like, you know what, if you're going to do that, because you're assuming, the assumption there is that I am perceiving the same world that you perceive, which is, if the writer is white, is a predominantly white world. That's not my world. When I read it and I see Mary, I might be Mary, Jane, I might be Jane. I see all of those as me until I go, oh, I'm Letitia. So if you want to do that, that's fine, but then have the, you know, take full responsibility and write Caucasian, 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 Black. Right. Do that. Own it. You can have it. I don't mind. That's your world. But own it. Don't make me have to point it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Wow.
Well, Conrad, I'll let you go.
No. You're up this time. You're up. I find this quite fascinating. Please.
Well, I think one of the issues for me is the way language is used. So I think, for example, a lot of the stereotypical characters that they write for us are so limited in depth, in background, and in language.
Yeah.
And I know that growing up, I used to talk the way I talk now, which is, you know, in this kind of articulate way in which I'm able to express myself using the vocabulary that I need. Mm-hmm. And this kind of expression is not something that's associated with Black people. It's always associated with white characters who are able to be the typical characters that we see on television and in movies. But when they think of Black characters, they always think of us in this very limited education, this very limited idea of possibilities of what we could be, from from gang members to slaves, and they're so stereotypical. We are a diverse people that know how, that have all colors of the spectrum. So yes, we have that element in our community that are, you know, impoverished and that talk this certain type of way, but that's not the bulk of who we are. That's not everybody. And I think that a lot of Hollywood and the white writers in Hollywood have been lazy about getting to know Black people and the complexity in which their character is made of. I also want to say that, you know, the examples that are put out there in the media, what we see, then perpetuates our children and our kids out there to continue the same stereotypes. And so it becomes a cyclical thing where the people are being dumbed down because the dumbed down images of us are being put out there. That's why I thought that the existence of, and I still think that the existence and celebration of Barack Obama and what he did as president, as a black man, as an intelligent person, representing a different demographic of who we are that exists, that has always existed, from W.B. Du Bois to Frederick Douglass. We've always had these intellectual black people in our community that have known how to say what they want to say and express on our behalf, rising us up. But I think white people, writers in the business, don't take the time to get to know those kinds of people. And I think slowly, speaking to your point, Raven, things are changing. We are seeing change. We are seeing that somebody like Obama is a visual representation of a kind of people that we want to see. And so, yes, that was one of the reasons why I felt discouraged into business, because I didn't want to take the stereotypical roles. I didn't want to be told in a casting session, can you be more ethnic, or can you be more ghetto, or can you do it like this? Because yes, I can be that, right? But I prefer to give me background on character. Tell me what's going on with that character. Tell me what kind of upbringing they had and why they are like they are. Not just, we're looking for that kind of a person, and that's not enough for me as an actor to portray a character. So I think we've got a long way to go. But we've had some great legends. We've had people that have really paved the way for us: the Harry Belafontes, the Paul Robesons, the Sidney Poitiers, the Brock Peters of the world. And we're going to continue to break down those stereotypes. We're going to continue to be more than what they expect us to be, and therefore raise the bar of what we see, so that there is a diverse representation of us, not just the prostitute, not just the gang member, but also the doctor and the dentist and the lawyer and the police officer and the entire array of who we are.
Absolutely. And that's why, thank you for that, because it's so important. It's like, yes, there's the old adage, write what you know. But if the writer is a white writer that doesn't have that hasn't done that extra work, then everything that they write is going to be skewed from that one perspective. And it's sort of like, no, we need more. There's a diversity there that needs to be mined. I love Shonda Rhimes and all the work that she has done, because she does that. She writes these full characters of all color, but full characters. And then the strong leads that she has created. I mean, we see how they are full human beings, right? That have, yes, all the foibles and the troubles and everything that they're battling, but it's like, we see who they are as the person first. And it's just, that's the exciting work that I love to see. And it is slow in coming, but I'm always inspired by some of my artist friends who then create their own work. They're just like, okay, then we need to tell our own stories and create ways and forge those avenues where then they can be, the writers on series, the directors. We see it happening. They're slow going, but we still have like great people of color who are directors and writers and producers. And so it's just a matter of creating avenues for us to continue to tell our stories, because they are our stories to tell. So I'm just excited about that. Thank you for sharing that, Cirroc.
Yeah, and also one more thing I just wanted to add real quick. We always talk about how education is going to help our community, and education does help us better our circumstances, improve our financial situations, and make better people out of us. And so it has helped me elevate my life. Education, going to school, studying at UCLA, learning business and economics. Just being present in that kind of environment, that helps us. But if you want us to raise our status with education, then you can't be afraid of an educated person. And you can't be afraid to show educated people. So we have to do one. If we're going to do one, we have to do the other.
That's right. I love that. Well said. Conrad, do you want to?
Okay, so, I'm born in London, England, so I don't have any particular accent anymore. I grew up in Ottawa when I was a kid. My mother shifted us over to Ottawa, and so yeah, my sort of inner urban experience is like 0 to none, and yet I was being asked very early in my career to play these gangbangers, drug dealers, and all that sort of thing, and I made a decision really early on I studied the classics. That was my focus. That was my way into a world that was foreign to me in terms of trying to learn to be a better person. And I always felt that, studying Shakespeare, that was the top bar for me. So I really focused on that really early in my acting career and training. I went to Stratford, did all of that work, and then I come out and now I'm being asked to kill somebody and sell drugs on the corner. I was very confused. And I told my agent many, many times, I'm not going out for this part. And they were like, yeah, but these are the parts. And I'm like, these are not the parts.
That's right.
There are other parts. And I really focused on being a professional. Any part that I was starting to go out for really early in my career were the lawyers, were the scientists, were the politicians, everything where the guy was in a suit. Like easily the first 10, 15 years of my resume is me in a suit until I got sick of that. Right. But I was not going to lower the personal bar. I refused to do it. And all the people that were starting out with me who started off down that road, they're no longer in the business. Yet I've now been able to at least keep my educated status up there. And I was really dead against trying to portray and perpetuate this idea of, you got to be a bad man in order to be a professional actor. I refused to do it. And, I look back on my career and I'm proud that I made that choice. Really early out, I really established the fact that I'm not going to do that. And I was fortunate enough to get to this place, this far along the road. And so I'm so happy to hear you also share, what you guys had to do in terms of that struggle. So I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Which means sometimes turning down roles where there are so few roles already for Black people.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're still here.
We're not going anywhere. We are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I think about that. I think about, I believe it was Sidney Poitier in one of his interviews, and he talked about that, like turning down roles and being in a position though where, you got a family and they have to eat, and everybody else is like, take the role, take the role, take this role. And he just wouldn't, based on his own integrity, where he drew his line. And it's like, how many people's lives has he touched from doing that? He broke so many barriers. He reflected to us through the screen who we were inside, not what we were being told as. And it's just, when I think about that, when I think about what that takes, it inspires me then to do better.
Right.
This is how the chain goes, and I'm very thankful because, I had one agent before previously, but then I joined up with the agent that I have now. And one of the things that I just loved about him and do love about him is how he champions his clients, and so he will put me in a room. He'll do the thing where if it doesn't say that it has to be a Black person, he'll throw me in the room, and it's great because a lot of the time too, casting, they don't know until they see it. You know what I mean? And so when you come in and you present that idea that, yes, this character could be a Black woman, they're just like, wow, yes. And it takes that foresight. It takes, having a community of people around us, or the people that we interact with, that are willing to open their minds in a way, And so just a shout out to people who not necessarily understand what we go through, but still open their minds to being supportive.
Yeah, and a shout out to casting directors who will open their minds to that, because there's that famous one about Lethal Weapon. That Danny Glover it didn't say Black man, and casting director is the one that says it. And if we could have more casting directors, and I also want to say, there's you know, we have so many different brothers and sisters, right, who have so many different stories. And it is not to take away from those whose rhythms are organically, unique to themselves and different from others, right? And we want to celebrate that and amplify that and support that. And that's a beautiful thing. The problem comes when there's a concept that there's only one rhythm to a person of color. And that's what we want to make sure doesn't, live, because there's as many different rhythms of us as there are of white person, of people, of humans, right? Mm-hmm. So it's that kind of thing of like, I don't want to disparage or put anybody in a different sort of like, I don't want to do that. It's not that. It's that I want to do other things as well. And I want to be, as we all have said, I'm here only for this much time. Life goes by like that. I want to, explore my art in the way that it fulfills me so that I can make it the best that I can to present to the other people, right? And I won't be able to fulfill my art if I'm manipulating myself in order to fulfill somebody else's concept of me, right? Yeah. I mean, I have to say that's one of the things when I got the breakdown of Rafi, that I literally, sitting there like this, that I kind of like, I was ecstatic because it was just a really fully fledged human. Yes. She didn't have no color at all. It was just a human, perfectly imperfect. I didn't have to be, just this. I could have my frailty and my vulnerabilities and my strength, and that's all that we're always asking as people of color. You just want to go, just let us have the opportunity. Let us have the opportunity to tell all the stories, all our stories, because all our stories are stories of humanity. And they just look really cool and tan,
Yeah, I mean, you brought up Star Trek, and I think that one of the things that can be celebrated about Star Trek is the fact that it has really put a lot of emphasis on these well-rounded characters that are not afraid to push the boundaries and that have depth and that have this flushed out background. And there's way more to it than just these boxes that are being checked. And I think to the credit of CBS and Paramount, who have put so much work into developing a quality product like Star Trek, they deserve the credit for not being afraid to push those boundaries, not being afraid to take those risks and those chances and put the kind of quality material that we're looking to see out there. So I've been blessed by having that opportunity.
It's obvious that it's so wanted because, I mean, the audience, the fan base for Star Trek, it's all about the other. All about the other. I mean, if it doesn't work without the other.
That's right.
Right. And if they are not going beyond into those places where we've never gone before, blah, 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 then it doesn't work. So yeah, you're right. That's great. There's a bit of a joke here locally when we go to casting, and of course, all the black guys who look like me, we're all going to show up. And we're all there and we're like, oh, like this is the day when they're kind of recasting. And I remember a buddy of mine saying, yeah, this is color correction time. They're color correcting the picture here. Wow. Please do not adjust your set. We're fixing for you. We're just going to put a little bit more of this over here. And it's, the first time I heard it, I was like, yeah, that does kind of feel like that. Like
that's right.
They looked at the board and they went, ooh, this is too much of this still. Let's adjust this picture. It's fabulous. I love the idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also, I think it's important for us to seek out those roles that they don't typically go for a person of color, so that purposely, so that we can present ourselves in those places. I think I've told this before, that I was doing an arc on 90210, not the original, not the latest reboot, but that one in the middle, right? The one on CW. And my character was supposed to be the event planner to the stars. She owns her own business and blah, 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 blah. And the first day I had, my hair, this, and the next day or something, I got a phone call in the car and from producers, they're like, hi, Michelle, we have the producers on the line for you. And, all I'm thinking is like, damn, I did one day and I sucked that much there. and we do that normal paranoia. So I'm like, I pulled over and I'm like, hi, what can I do for you? And they said, you know, we love, you know, Michelle, we love you. We love your hair. It's fabulous. But we did some research. Which I find, okay, whatever. We did some research, and our research told us that if you're a woman of color, you will only be thought of respectfully as owning a business if you have straightened hair.
Wow.
And I can't tell you, because I'm like, clearly you could sort of sense that I'm not a shy person. I can speak up.
There's research for that? Like, where did you,
That's what I'm saying.
where'd y'all look that up at?
Where is there an, like, can you send me that?
Can you fax that over to me? Let me look over that.
And I have to say, I was so taken aback. Like I couldn't find any words, you know, because all I could think about is, Michelle, I'm a person. I'm just a human being, regardless of whether I was an actor or not. If I chose to have an event planning job, I'd still look like this. Like I wouldn't get the job and then all of a sudden change my stuff. I'm a human being. I could look like anything. And the fact that they're saying, and then also just that point, you wouldn't be respected as a woman of color owning something unless you look more homogenized. Right in that moment, that's why Rafi has a huge thing of curls, because I was like, you know what? In 2400, we natural. We kinky, natural, we got it all. So
y'all can respect this. Y'all can respect
this. I think it's important for us to really continue to push forward and make sure that when we do get these things, we we proudly represent a non-homogenized look. And we embrace the individual and the
diversity.
The differences and the diversity, yeah.
Because there are people watching, and it means so much to see themselves reflected on that screen. It changes everything.
Yep.
You know? You're not alone or isolated or overlooked or undervalued. Like when you see the reflection of yourself on that screen, it makes everything else possible all of a sudden.
Well, I mean, I think about Obama. Like Obama, you know, there's schoolroom, you know, there's schoolrooms that they have the pictures of the presidents around the top or whatever. I know I'm so old, but that's what they had back in my day. And all I can think about now, because when we grew up, it was all white, right? White men. Mm-hmm. Now, our little boys and girls, brown, black boys, there's a black man up there. Mm-hmm. You know, we don't even understand psychologically what that does. Because now they see themselves, you know?
That could be me. I could put my picture up there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And soon to be vice president.
That's right. And soon to be vice president. I'm crossing my toes as well.
Michelle, you said that your father was an actor.
Yep.
We just had a conversation.
This picture of my dad in a movie that he did in Japan called Shiku.
Oh,
and
wow.
There, and that's him over there too. And, you know, he actually ended up doing a lot of work elsewhere in Japan, in Europe, because
Speaking what language in Japan?
He did speak Japanese, but there was, and I think in the film he speaks Japanese as well. So it's subtitles, but it's, yeah. But he was one of those that had, you know, he had to take parts because he needed to make a living. And there was a lot of roles that he did on stage and in film where he didn't let us see. You know, he didn't feel, he was embarrassed. He was like, I'm playing, you know, he'd say, I'm playing an Uncle Tom, or, you know, this is not what I want you to see me as. And it hurt him, you know, it really hurt him, you know, in his soul, because those were the only parts that he could get. And that's why he literally would go elsewhere, different countries to actually get jobs of just being a man, you know, just a human. So, but yeah, my dad was an actor.
So this understanding, of being an artist and being true to who you are, like you're an extension of that thinking of your father.
Yeah.
You'll be very proud of you. You'll be very, very proud of you. Keep that.
I would encourage everybody to read.
No, please go on, Cirroc, please.
I would just encourage everybody to read a book called Here I Stand by Paul Robeson. And it talks about his struggles as a black man dealing with these very same issues, both from sports, which he was an excellent athlete at Rutgers University, also to his time as a lawyer, and why he wanted to leave that profession because of the racism that he felt and experienced, being marginalized in the law firm and told to do certain cases that weren't up to par. And also in the acting and music profession, where she later on became an actor and singer. So he's talks about all of these kinds of things and the discrimination that he felt and faced in all of these levels of life, right? From athletics to the education to entertainment. So I would encourage people out there who want to get a real good understanding. It's still relevant to this day. It's called Here I Stand, Paul Robes.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Cirroc. I just wanted to jump on what Michelle was saying, in that these roles, they come at a price too. You know, if you're planning, like I'm thinking of your father, who you're saying that he was hurt, like the hurt and the shame of playing these types of roles where, you know, sure, we're acting, but at the end of the day, you're saying these lines or you're doing these actions. If you have to play a rapist or you have to play this or you're doing these things that the body doesn't necessarily know that we're acting. Like you're reliving or inhabiting the essence and the feeling of what these characters are, or what the stereotype is, or what the situation may be, and that can come at a great price.
Yeah,
to an artist.
I'd like to speak to that point. I was part of a playwrights festival once in Calgary many years ago, and the writer was coming at it from the perspective of there used to be Southern migrant workers that would come up from the States and go to Northern Ontario in Canada. And they would do the seasonal work, much like how we take workers from the Caribbean or workers from South America. We give them these temporary work visas. They can only really go to the farms, pick the fruit, pick the tobacco, whatever. And as soon as the growing season is over, back they go. In this one particular story, this man who was from the Netherlands, the family, like in terms of the story, the family was from the Netherlands, and he would take on the black migrant workers, and at the end of the season, before he would pay them, so now they're there from, say, March, putting in the fields, now we're into harvest, coming up into October, right about this time of the year. So now they're getting ready to get their earnings, they've cleared the fields, they're gonna go back. The night before, he would send in his young daughter, who was probably a virgin, and she would entrap the black men, and then he would come in and see them and kill the workers.
Jesus.
So now they would just disappear.
Right.
Because the families didn't know where they exactly went when they went north. There was no communication of once they arrived up at the farms where they were. So nobody would ever come looking for them. It would just disappear. So he got free labor. And in this particular story, there was my character who was that black migrant worker, and there was a young, shady white kid that he hung out with that also went on to this farm. And I remember one day in rehearsal, we're rehearsing this scene, and the black workers were not allowed into the house. And in this one scene, I came into the house. The young daughter lured me into the house. I was very like, this is not a good idea. I shouldn't be in here. I just came to get some water. And she goes, oh, come on, sit down. I'm cleaning some fish. Why don't you clean the fish with me? And just at that time, in comes her father. And as I was rehearsing the scene, the spirit, the best way I can describe it, this spirit just came over me, and all of these migrant workers that had disappeared, and something in me was now starting to say that there is some real truth to what it is that we're portraying in this story that we're telling. And I had this incredible sense of dread. Now, even though I know we were rehearsing, there was no audience, I was living this moment. I swear to God, as I'm saying this now, I can feel all of the past come right up to my eyes. They're right here, and I could feel as we were doing the scene, and now it became like it was like a dueling Bible quoting. scene. He would speak a line in verse and I would have to counter. I'd find another line in the verse. And we were both very clearly well-versed in Bible studies. But it was the only way that this character survived this moment in this story was because he knew the Bible, and the white man could see the humanity in me only through the scripture that I was saying. But I recall when I got up, like I had to exit the scene, and I like ran out of the rehearsal hall and I wept. It was uncontrollable, this feeling that overtook me of how our history is right there in our DNA. It's right here with us now. It's not necessarily through my bloodline directly, but I know it's through our cultural bloodline. We're always in that river of history, the energy of our ancestors. And I was just really, I don't know how I really want to end saying this, but I really felt it necessary for me to share that.
Yes.
It was very powerful.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Because these are the stories that we're telling. We're the chosen mouthpieces for that. I firmly believe in that.
No,
that
we're the chroniclers of the
for
time.
a reason,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's right.
You know? But to speak to that then, I'm going to kind of jump here because what I felt you were also hitting on, Conrad, as well, is our legacy, past legacy of what work we've created, but also in future legacy. So if I could pose, because we're almost running out of time here, we have about 10 more minutes. You know, one of the great things, the pride that I have in being a part of the Star Trek family, like this role and being able to play Dr. Pollard, I can't even speak to how much it has touched me, how grateful I am to be able to talk with the fans. I've had people, message me being like, you're a doctor. It's so important to see a Black doctor on screen. And, you have your hair natural. My daughter wants her hair like yours. And just, it's so important. Star Trek has created from the beginning, I mean, having the first interracial kiss, having just characters, they've created a legacy that speaks to equality, that speaks to who we are. I'm curious as to each individual one of you, is there something that you feel that's a part of your own legacy that you wish to create or extend forward and moving on? I know it's a big question, but if there's anything that you can speak to that, because I feel as artists, as actors of color, we are that already. Everything that we do is out there for others to see, to entertain, to inspire, what have you. Is there anything that you consciously feel is something that you wish to leave as part of your legacy or to continue to build on?
I mean, I think it's for myself. It's what I've been continuing doing. The choices that I've made. I just really want. I just want a whole bunch of little brown and Black kids with crazy hair and looking unique and interesting to see themselves. Just to see themselves. And to see themselves respectfully portrayed. And to give them, maybe to inspire them to seek out a vocation that I portrayed, perhaps, or whether they want to do acting or not, but an actual job of a role that I've done, and just to see that there are people who are here, who have been here, who are continuing on. We're not going anywhere. We're strong, we're diverse, we're intelligent, we're interesting, we're funny.
Beautiful.
That's right. Full of love, full of empathy, understanding, a depth of understanding. If there's anything that, I've really realized during this whole time, during this, quarantine and during this, the painful viewing of videos and body cams and just injustice, is to say that we are here. We're not going anywhere. We're not afraid. We're strong. We have a point of view, and we are on the right side of history.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. And
Yes, we are.
That's what I want to continue to present. Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Cirroc, Conrad?
Well, you know, going forward, there are some things that I'd like to get done and have as part of my legacy. But one of the important things that I think I'd like people to remember and focus on is, you know, I was able to work on Star Trek and portray the future. And so we are putting imagery that is the future selves, ourselves of in the future and as part of the future. And I think we're all of us are doing a great job of representing ourselves, our people, in a very well articulate way. But I want to say that also, in addition to seeing a better future for us and seeing a place in the future for us, I think that we also need to understand our past, and it needs to be used as a tool to better us and to give us confidence of who we are. I think a lot of what they talk about when they talk about African American history, a lot of it, for me, growing up, was about slavery, and was about a very narrow, limited view of Black people on the planet. But yet, if you were to study the European history, it was always about this kingship and, you know, the knights and the royalty. And so they have a vision of themselves that emanates from the, you know, King Henry and Queen Elizabeth in the Victorian era, and all of these things that are, you know, so uplifting if you know that that's part of your history. And I think that we need to also understand that part of our history is the exact same kind of royalty, the same kind of education. You know, we have an ancient history that has kings and queens, and culture, and I think that a lot of our African American history should also be tied to our African history, and where our roots are there, how we've come from such greatness, and, you know, from dynasties ourselves, from leading Egypt 8,000 years ago to being where we are today, still here on this planet and still thriving and doing what we do and making our impact known. So I think I would like to, going forward, kind of touch on these stories that talk about Black greatness, that talk about Black excellence, beyond the scope of the limited view of just, you know, this minimalized version of slavery in American history that we have. We're way more than that. We're part of the building of this country, and we're part of the building of the ideas that founded this country, the origin of these kinds of thoughts. So I think that we need to get in tune with those origins. So we know that about Mansa Musa. So we know about the 25th dynasty in Egypt. So we know about who we are as a people, and see ourselves as kings, as queens, as royalty, of having the bloodline, of being part of the biblical stories. We need to know that we're part of all of that. It's not a European thing. It's actually a European thing that was stolen from us as well. So I think that if we start to learn more about who we are and see ourselves in these kinds of ways, it will help change the narrative. It will help break the stereotypes. Because it's too limiting to say you're descended from a slave and that's it.
Right.
Because that makes me, where do I go with that?
Right.
What do I use that? How do I use that to better myself? I think knowledge of self is the thing that's going to really set us free, and knowledge of self in our history is the thing that's going to make us elevate to the place of the future that we want to be at.
Nice.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you both have really said it. You know, you've used all of the things that I've wanted to say. You know, just really the one word that comes to me is the dignity. Dignity and our humanity that is not allowed to be shown really in a real way. And, you know, again, because of the choice of roles that I've taken and the path that I've wanted to sort of show and keep showing, you know, let my children be proud of who I am and let them be proud of who they are. You know, there's to have our head up and not always having to be looking down, and to know that we do have the education because we're there now, and to, you know, know that we belong, like to really reinforce this fact long before the Black Lives Matter movement, though it's incredibly important. you know, we do belong and that we are a part of this society. And as you say, Cirroc, you know, we built this.
Yeah.
We built this. In fact, a lot of what they're doing is built on what we did. So as a human race, as a part of the human race story, we are part of this collective conversation. And I really do want that to be echoed. And you're right, Star Trek does allow these characters to do that. So, but to have that really come into the humanity of the human storytelling, I would love to have more of that. But it's about access, and I think we're still working on that. We haven't really spoken about that, but it's part of it. It's part of the problem. It's part of the solution, and it's where we should definitely be going in the future. Thank you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thank you. Is there anything else? I mean, do we want to speak more to that, Conrad? Is there anything else that you want to address?
I think, you know, I've said my bit anyways, and I just really appreciate what the others are saying. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would add that, Raven, just really quickly, that we're in front of the camera, and I'm blessed that we've had the opportunity to be in front and that we're still continuing to be in front of the camera. But there's also work to be done on the other side of the camera.
Right.
Writing.
The writers, the showrunners, the executives at the networks.
Yeah.
We need to be there too. So not just being in front of the camera, but there's a long list and a long line and a big wide opening for us to make our mark on the other side of the camera as well. So.
Yes, please.
Absolutely. The next frontier. Absolutely. Right now. This has been incredible. I feel like we're almost out of time. So I don't know if there's anything else that anyone wants to add to this. It's already been such a fabulous panel. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for your time. Is there anything that you want to give a shout out to as well? I mean, any projects that you...
I'll give you a little shout out. We got something called Trek the Vote, which is going to be on October 13th. It's with the Biden-Harris campaign. 5 shows, 19 actors, 4 politicos, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, Stacey Abrams, and Andrew Yang. There might be some more that will pop in, but come join us. It's going to be fun. Those guys are all huge Trekkies, so they're going to ask us a bunch of questions. We'll ask them, and it's all to help Biden and Harris get in the White House. Get in the. We need to reclaim that house. Reclaim that house. We built it. Let's reclaim it.
Let's say thank you for coming up with this idea. Fantastic idea for a panel and a segment, because this is a needed conversation, and these conversations will spawn other conversations. So kudos to you for taking this on as a challenge.
Thank you. I feel like this is just the beginning. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many more conversations that could be had on this. We're just representing, you know, the African-American perspective here, African-Canadian, Afro-Caribbean. But there's so many. I mean, all people of color. I don't say minorities because that's something that...
I'm not. I'm
right?
not a minority.
But there's so many people of color, and we all have our stories, and it's like for a full view, for a full rounded view of who we are as a community, who we are as the Earth people. I feel like it's so important that we have these platforms to just talk about who we are and what we do.
Thank you
Absolutely.
for that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story, Michelle, Conrad. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, people are going to love and grow from that. This is a healing type of situation we're in. This is the moment for us to, you know, really evaluate where we are and take steps to improve our condition.
Yes. And go vote.
Go vote.
Go vote. Want to share much love to Ryan for putting this together and for doing the panels, these conventions. Everyone come on out, enjoy, connect. We're here, and just everyone be safe in these times, right? Send a lot of virtual hugs, a lot of love. Look at what's going on in the community and just speak your truth. Speak your truth and share your love. So,
Live long and prosper.
You know what it is.